Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us in this presentation about the power of love in these hard-to-love times. During the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about a high-level point of view about how the context of love and brand love have changed in the last 10 years. And then we are going to share with you what we think are the real good path for love. And we're going to see how Chinese brands are doing on this path of love. We're going to see some cool examples. But before entering the content, we would like to introduce ourselves. I'm going to let my colleague and friend, Javier Munjal, to introduce herself. Divya, all yours.
Thanks, Javier. Happy to be here. My name is Divya Munjal. I am a Director of Strategy and Innovation at BAV at WPP. I've been at BAV in New York for about 8 years and have recently moved to London, and excited to talk with you all today.
Thank you. My name is Javier Pastor. I'm Vice President of Strategy and Innovation in BML and I'm America's lead advisor for BAV at WPP. Some of you might be wondering what is this BAV that we're talking about. BAV is the acronym of Brand Asset Valuator. Brand Asset Valuator is the largest and long-running study of brands in the world. It's a WPP intellectual property. Every client, every WPP INC can access to it. And it's a magic source of data about brands, customers, and culture. We've been doing this for almost 30 years, measuring around 60,000 brands all over the world in more than 50 countries. And the best thing is that we measure 75 consistent metrics for all these 30 years, 60,000 brands and 50 markets. So we can track how things change in culture, how brands change relationship with customers. And it's a great strategic tool for brands and agencies and strategies to understand how culture is shifting. And we are going to use a lot of BAV information to understand how love evolves in culture and how you and your brand could navigate this turbulent context to create a more deeper relationship with your users. So let's start. I would like to start with a statement that I will assume most of us share in one way or another, right? We live in a time that's kind of hard time to love. We've been in a time with the last decade, a lot of things happened, and most of them haven't been kind to love. I would say that the starting point is the financial crisis of 2018, with the crisis or the trust crisis that came with it. And now we're in a process of polarization, fake news, we don't trust each other. And on top of that, we discover that we're killing our planet and maybe killing ourselves in the process. And on top of that, we had this global pandemic that has been tough for us, brands, for countries. It's been a tough time, especially for. And to understand why these things have been that tough with love, I think we need to understand what love is, right? Probably each person in the world has a different definition of what love is, but more or less we'll be close to this. The way we understand love is a mix of trust, commitment, and communication. How much you're willing to trust something or someone? How much are you willing to commit with that someone or something? And how will you communicate with it? And the last 10 years have been tough, especially with each of these pillars. And I'm going to be walking you through each of them and let you understand how the events of the last 10 years impacted each of these pillars. Let's start with trust. Since the financial crisis, 2018, it came with this trust crisis. We stopped trusting our institutions, or politicians, or heroes, and of course, our brands. This chart shows the percentage of all the brands that we measure in BAV, 60,000 brands approximately in 50 markets. What percentage of these brands are highly trusted? During the financial crisis 10 years ago, globally, we trusted 1/3 of the brands in the world. if we move forward to the present day, that percentage was reduced by 8%, and now we only trust 1/4 of the brands in the world. That's a huge reduction in a global scale. And that's only the global picture. If we go into each of the markets, we see how the picture is more tangible. You can see how the trust is lost in every crisis. This is United States. We have similar data for most of the countries that we measure. And there's a high correlation between how we trust and the crisis that we have to go through. And this is very important because trust has been in decline, and love is based on how much we're capable of trust our brands. And now, at least in the United States and also in a global scale, it's hard to trust. So trust is not going through through its best days. But then with the digitalization of the society and the economy, our commitment is being tested. This is what experts call the Tinder effect, which is basically having the option of choose an alternative for everything with one click away, right? You go and your brand compete in Amazon against another 10,000 brands, one click away, one promotion away. The same happened with people, with dating apps. The same thing happened with news, information, media. Commitment and loyalty are questioned today, and that's also impacting brands. If we look some of the most important markets in the world, we see how the percentage of brands that are able to create this highly commitment relationship with customers are in decline from 2001, 2010 to 2020, 21. These percentages are declining around the world. We just presented some of the most important markets, but we see this trend consistent all over the world. Today, only 1/3 of the brands are able to create this solid commitment relationship. So chances are that if you're working with a brand, you are working with one of the brands that are capable of creating this relationship. So your brand is highly interchangeable. One click away from the competitors, and it all depends on the last promotion, the distribution, and your brand doesn't have the power to create those relationships. We are losing trust, our commitment has been tested, and finally, our communication game is not in the best days, right? The world is becoming more and more polarized. Some countries are more evident than others, but at the end of the day, we're getting distant from each other. The polarization is real between countries, within countries. And we can see this also in the BAV data. When we analyze how country brands are perceived among customers of other markets, we can see how things have changed drastically in the last 4 years. In here we have a chart that I prefer to see in a positive way rather than a negative way, but shows how the perception of China brand and United States brand were from the American customers and the Chinese customer only 4 years ago. And we can see that only 4 years ago, the China brand was perceived 92 more progressive, original, and distinctive for the American customers. Or we can look at that negative, right, and say that today the brand is minus 92% more progressive, original, distinctive when perceived from the American customers. I prefer to think that we can come back to that as quickly as we came down to the current situation. The same is happening from the United States brand. And these trends that we've seen globally also can be seen in the local market. And I think United States is the most clear example of this division or polarization that is affecting brands too. If we divide the society, American society, between Democrats and Republicans, we can see how brands need to position or are being forced to position. The more clear examples are the media consumption. CNN is for Democrats, Fox News is for Republicans, but you can see how other brands need to position and take a stand in different social topics that are important for these groups. and that immediately create a reaction of each of these groups and how they interact with the brand. This also happened with the way these specific groups see reality, and we can see that in what is the most reliable leader for each of them. And only these pictures tells a huge story about what's happening in the United States, and probably you guys from other countries can rely or can see something similar to this happen in your markets. We've seen how trust is in decline. Commitment is not it's in highs anymore. It's coming down, and also the communication game is going through a tough time. But no matter how intense tough times are, love always finds its way. This is a chart, a distribution of all the brands we measure in BAV, 60,000 brands, and where they sit in this love-hate distribution. We can see that no matter how bad trust is, commitment or communication is, people still prefer to love, and love always finds a way. 1/3 of the brands are in what we call the love area. They are more love than hate. They are not indifferent to people. People love them, and they will be sad, and they won't. They will then prefer that these brands disappear of their life. These brands are important for them. And what we know based on the BAV data is that love always pays off. When we look at the brands that are most loved, we see that they are 56% more used, 48% more preferred, and 44% more recommended than the rest of the brands in the world. There is a huge ROI in being a love brand and having this deeper and emotional relationship with your customers. The beautiful thing about love is that love comes in different shapes and forms. Chinese customers love WeChat. United States customers love Kleenex. UK customers love the NHS, and Brazil love the Havaianas. Every country loves their brands, and every country connect with love in a different way. We can see how United States and UK have the similar takes, that they like the trustworthy, reliable leader, while China loves this sensuality, this vision, this popularity in brands. I like the way Germans love their brands and looking for this authenticity, this originality. And you can explore every country in the world with the BAV data, and you will discover that each culture loves their brands in a different, specific way. Love is great also to bridge the gap between generations. This is only 2 examples to prove the point, but we've seen that most loved brands are more capable to connect across generations. Gen Z, millennials, boomers, that's the power of love. And also connect across borders and culture. The biggest and strongest global brands are capable to connect with different cultures, even if they like different things and connect with different things. Biggest global brands are capable to create that emotional relationship. This is an example of Lego, and how Lego is among the most loved brands in all these countries. But it's not all good news with love. Love is great, and you should seek it. But we have bad news, especially for you, John. BAV data proves that John Lennon wasn't 100% right, because all you need is love is not necessarily true. What we believe is love is great, but it's not enough. Analyzing the 60,000 brands over 30 years and understanding how brands relate and engage with customers, we see that love is a great present indicator. Brands that are loved today are probably leading their categories and connecting deeper with the customers, but at the same time, love is a lagging future indicator. Brands that are loved today tend to decline faster than the brands that aren't in that position. This chart is a little bit more technical than the others. We have 2 axes here. The vertical one is what we call brand momentum. It defines the energy of the brand in the market, how fast they grow. And the horizontal axis is the brand mass, how big, how massive a brand tends to be. When we analyze the most loved brands in the world, 65% of them tend to have more mass than energy, which that means that they are in what we call the predictive fatigue area. They tend to be 1% less usage and 3% less preferred over year on average. And that's why we start digging into brand love and trying to understand how brands are able to create momentum and growth through love. And that's when I'm going to pass the word to Divya, who's going to introduce what we find and what is this thing that we call Love Plus. Or yours.
Great. Thank you, Javier. I'm very excited to be sharing with you all our newest metric, birthed from our BAV at WPP team. As Javier mentioned, we've studied over 100,000 brands around the world for almost 30 years. We've analyzed consumers' relationships with brands and how love has evolved over time and our relationship with love. The concept of Love Plus actually comes from the fact that love only doesn't tell us the whole picture. We can tell you how much a brand is loved, how much a brand is hated. We want to explain to you why a brand is loved and what are the perceptual underpinnings of a brand that make it so dear to one's life. And the reality of it is that love is dynamic. We've learned from leading psychologist Robert Sternberg, who suggests that there is a triangular theory of love. And it basically says that people have varying degrees of intimacy, passion, and commitment for people at any one point in time. And so studying the thousands of brands for years now, we've understood that this actually holds true for people's attitudes towards brands as well. So that's why we've come up with different dimensions of love. There are 4 different ways in which consumers love brands, and I'm going to walk you through each dimension and how they have impact on our lives. So in no particular order, the first one is called dependable love. Think of brands that always follow through on their promise. They're reliable, they're trusted, they make your life easier. These kinds of brands are a part of your daily life because globally, they're 110% more regularly used than any other branding culture. Think of brands like Tide and Coca-Cola and Dove, right? They're a part of your everyday life. Next, we have aspirational love. Think of brands that have amazing quality. They're trendy, they're stylish, brands that you want to have in your life and perhaps work hard to get them. Aspirational brands are 74% more desirable than any other brand globally. Like Nike, it aspires through empowerment. Chanel, it aspires through attaining classic luxury. Or think of Estee Lauder, it's luxury beauty every day. The third dimension of love is called intellectual love. Think of brands that are forward-thinking, innovative, visionary. Intellectual love gets you 68% more favorability. Some examples are Google, Netflix, and Amazon, because these are the brands that enhance your life and make your life more efficient. And the last dimension, but not least, is called playful love. Think of brands that are social and carefree and even creative. These brands are 49% more recommended to others than any other brand in culture globally. They provide a fun experience, so it's easy to talk about them. Some global examples are Disney, Lego, and Ben & Jerry's, because these are strong brands that bring joy to your life. So in summary, our dimensions of love allow you to see the different ways that consumers can have love for your brand and the different relationships they can have with them. Some brands give you more relevance, some brands give you more respect, but either way, brands that are highly scored on these different dimensions have strong emotional commitment to a consumer's life. Now let's get to the most exciting part of Love Me Do and reveal the most loved brands in China today. We applied the 4 dimensions of love to over 1,000 brands that we measure in China. And here they are. These are the top 10 brands in China that represent the top 1% on each dimension. Across categories, we actually found an interesting mix of market leaders and global players. So for the dependable list, we see brands that are highly used and a part of everyone's everyday life. In the aspirational column, you see brands that are luxury, but also brands that inspire, like the Olympic Games. In intellectual, you tend to see tech brands because these brands tend to get credit for innovation and visionary in our study. And lastly, we have playful brands. You get a good mix of apps, of CPG, retail, and even a restaurant. So when a brand achieves high scores in multiple categories of love, it reflects a strong brand equity in the market, right? Each dimension gives you different things in culture. It gives you different credit, whether it's usage, desirability, preferability. So when a brand scores high on it, it results in higher consumer passion. So let's start with Li-Ning. For those who may not be familiar with the brand, Li-Ning is a sports goods brand founded by an Olympic champion called Mr. Li-Ning. The reason why we wanted to analyze Li-Ning is to understand its exceptional ranking of the 4th place on aspirational love. But in order to describe the love that Chinese have for the Li-Ning brand, you must first understand the brand China, as in the country. In the BAV study this year, brand China is the number 1 brand in our study. It means it's the highest ranked brand across most metrics in our study. And so that means that the power of brand China directly reflects the patriotism of Chinese consumers. They feel stronger support, love, and passion for their country than any other consumer brand in the market. It's quite powerful. So if brand China is number 1, then it's no surprise to find that Chinese feel very strongly about patriotism in general. In further BAV data, we have a study called Best Countries, and we actually found that buying and engaging with local brands is a really important value to the Chinese consumer. For example, 92% of the population find that consumer brands play an important role in defining a country's culture. And 76% are actually willing to pay more for something that was made in their own country. So recently in China, there's been a media buzz around the Gaozhou trend, and it directly means that consumers are opting in for buying domestic brands just as a part of a nationalistic surge, rather than supporting established international brands. Li-Ning has actually capitalized on this consumer desire to support local brands because it always carries a strong and unique Chinese identity with everything that they do, whether it's global partnerships or international appearances. Its Chinese identity is very strong. So the Li-Ning brand is loved overall, but its strongest dimension is aspirational. And we actually found that there is a strong link between the Li-Ning brand and China as a brand as well. There's a significant correlation between the two brands. So this love really comes from the brand's ability to own a Chinese identity on a global platform and basically empower Chinese consumers with local pride. So in conclusion, you can be aspirational in different ways, like luxury as an example, but in this case, Li-Ning is aspirational through its nationalism. So the next case is Haidilao, and the reason why we're choosing this is because we want to understand how a high-scoring brand can perform on a different kind of love. In this case, it's playful. Haidilao is a hot pot restaurant that's known for so much more than just its food. It started out in China and has expanded across the world. Right now, there are 400 plus restaurants despite COVID effects, and it actually is a market valuation of almost 20 billion. So it's a powerhouse global brand. It's positioned as number 5 of all brands in China for being playful, but the playfulness of the brand is not limited to cooking your own food and engaging with others at your table. There's so much more to it. Haidilao has created an experience, and it's really unmatched compared to any other restaurant in the world. It's actually been coined the Ferrari of Chinese hot pot restaurants, and they've really figured out how to entertain customers at every touch point of their experience. So from the moment they enter the premise to the moment they say goodbye to their to the servers, customers are given the best treatments. If there's a wait for a table, customers are offered salon services like manicures. They're given unlimited snacks, they're given games. During the dining experience, customers are provided with theatrical experiences like a noodle making chef, noodle pulling chef, or even a magician. But if customers need anything through their experience, there are always robots to assist you. Haidilao really started with a cult following, but it's retained its identity and brand ethos as it's expanded across the world. So whether you go to London or New York or Singapore, the degree of love and loyalty is unparalleled. So although Haidilao gets credit for being playful, innovation is really core to the brand and attributes to the playful experience that's intended for customers. So whether it's, you know, the single dining stations or the iPads where you can customize your order, there are over 10,000 possibilities in your order, or the robot system in the kitchen that monitors real-time production and inventory and quality checks. The result of the innovations are perceived as fun and exciting and all play into this playful perception of the brand. So at Haidilao, love really runs deep, and it's not just about customers, but the love starts with the employees. The founder felt that the employees should be treated like family. So trust and respect are really important values to the company culture. And the founder actually felt that managers should all start in non-managerial positions and end up sharing profits when they become a manager. So there is incentive built into the business model. The founder's philosophy for the business is that customers are won table by table. And I love this quote because it basically means that people are there for different reasons, right? Customers might be coming in for, you know, a family gathering, for business, or even on a date. So basically, if every customer needs are different, then the way you move each customer's heart will not be the same. And I love that. All of this has really led to significant gains in customer engagement in China. Just in the last several years, the brand has gained 142% more in visitation and 184% more in preference. So this is just an incredible example of how a company culture can build an ecosystem of love that translates to playful love. So just wanted to summarize our presentation today. You know, as Javier had said, it is a hard time to love, but no matter what, love always finds its way. There is still passion with brands that are loved. And love does pay off, but sadly, love is not all that a brand needs, right? The idea of Love Plus is that we can not only measure how much a brand is loved or hated, but why, understanding the perceptual reasons behind the consumer passion and why the brand is connected to consumers. I just wanted to share with you all that we've put out a thought leadership piece by BAV at WPP. It's based on retailers in the US and UK. Check it out on our website to learn more about Love Plus. Thank you all for joining today and hope you have a wonderful rest of the week.